Okay, so for today's presentation, we're going to be doing a setup called the Asian Range Bounce Trade. Okay, so we're going to talk about this right now. What is an Asian Range Bounce Trade? So basically what it is it is a bounce trade that happens after an inducement of breakout traders above or below the Asian consolidation range. Okay, after the inducement, price will pull back to bounce off the 50 EMA and the 50% level of the Asian range, or price will pull back to the top or the bottom of the Asian range. Okay, the TDI must confirm with the RSI crossing the signal line and either bounce or trap within 1.5 points off of the static 50. Okay, and no anchor is required for this setup. Okay, so we're going to look at some chart examples now to show you what I mean. Okay, so this is GBP CHF. Okay, so this you can see there's no clear anchor here to the left. Okay, but this is our Asian range. Okay, very small pip range. Okay, but this is the inducement out of the Asian range. Okay, so you can see this move out of the Asian box. Okay, then it comes back. Okay, pulls back to the 50% of the Asian box. Okay, and the 50 EMA. All right, you want to look very closely at the RSI here. Okay, when it hits this line, okay, you can see the bounce off the static 50 within 1.5 points. Okay, so on your TDIs, okay, if you're using the template and you're using my indicators, you can see that the static 50 line is this dotted black line here. But then to the top and bottom of it, 1.5 points. You can see here 51.50 and 48.50. Right, 1.5 points above and below it. We have these white dotted lines, and that's what these lines are there for, to help you identify confirmations on these types of bounce trades. Okay, so the 50 EMA bounce, this Asian bounce range trade also use this 1.5 rule. Okay, so watch the bounce off the static within 1.5 points, so you can see it just touches that area and then bounces and rolls down. Okay, so now this shift candle is when that happens. Okay, but you can see here, if you enter there, you have the 200 EMA in your way. Okay, so what you need to do is you need to wait for this candle close below the EMAs, and also you need to wait for the RSI to cross the signal line. This candle here, the RSI had still not crossed over the signal line, which is what you need. Okay, so you need that. That's your entry. Okay, in that candle, and you need that RSI to cross the signal line to give you that confirmation. Okay, so that trade right there, enter there, and you can see it was a nice short. Okay, next trade, you're going to watch for the RSI to trap the static 50 as well. Okay, so not only just bounce off the static 50, but it can also trap. Okay, what is the difference between a bounce and a trap? So we'll talk about that in this example, but you can see here, this is our Asian range. Okay, again, another small pip range here. All right, 16.5 pips. But this right here is the inducement out of the Asian range. Okay, it's kind of a small inducement, but it's an inducement nonetheless. All right, and once the inducement happens, there's a pullback. Okay, pullback to the 50 EMA. Okay, which is right here, and also the 50% range, which is right here. Okay, it's a nice pin. All right, nice morning star candle pattern. Okay, and then you can look right here. This is what I mean by trapping the static 50. This is your static 50. Okay, the RSI closes below the static 50 and then comes back above it. That's a trap. Okay, a bounce is when it hits it and bounces off. Right, a trap is when it goes through and then comes back above. Okay, same thing the other way, when it goes up and then back down through. Okay, that's the difference between a trap and a bounce. All right, so if it's a bounce, then it has to be within 1.5 points. Okay, you can't have it bounce way up here, like up here. It has to be within 1.5 points. But if it's a trap, okay, it can go down through as far as it needs to go and then come back up through. Okay, that's a trap, and that's still valid. All right, so RSI traps through the static 50, crosses the signal line. Okay, so you can see here, crosses the signal line up here, right? And this shift candle would be your entry. Okay, so right there, that shift candle, you can even take it on the pullback. There's a little bit of pullback entry here that you can take, right? And that's a very nice trade up there. Each of these lines is 25 pips, so this was a little bit more than a 50 pip trade, maybe a 60 pip trade. Okay. All right. Now, sometimes the inducement can be pretty hard to spot. All right, just like that last one, the inducement was very small. Okay, if you look at the range here, 25.8 pips is a very small range. All right, you're going to see this candle come right out of the range, just poke its head out of the range, okay, just a little bit. But that counts as the inducement out of the Asian range. It doesn't matter how small it is, okay. It can be a full candle close below, the Asian range. It could be a wick that pokes its head out of there. Okay, but any of those conditions, as long as it pokes its head out of the Asian range box, okay, that counts as an inducement. All right, so once it does that, it induces out of the Asian range, okay, gives a pullback to the 50 EMA right here, okay, and the 50% range doesn't quite touch the 50% range, but it does make a pullback to that area, okay, touches the 50 EMA, and then you can see down here on the RSI, it also bounces right off of the 1.5 point on the static 50. Okay, so bounce off the static within 1.5 points. All right, now this candle, it closes below the 13 EMA, but you can't take that trade until it crosses the signal line. The RSI crosses the signal line. Okay, so there's also the 200 EMA right there, so you might want to take that trade because you have the EMA right in front of you. So wait till it closes below the EMA. Wait till it closes below. The signal line crosses below the RSI crosses below the signal line, and in this case it also crossed below the market baseline, which is a bonus. Okay, so that right there would be your entry on that candle close. All right, and that was a very, very nice trade. You can see it came all the way down. It was a big drop. Okay, now sometimes it can bounce off of the top of the range, and sometimes it can bounce off of the bottom of the range. So we're going to talk about the bottom range right now, and what I mean by the bottom range is this bottom right here. Okay, so this is your Asian range. Okay, this is a bigger range this time. Okay, 40 pips. Okay, the top of the range is here, the bottom of the range is here. On some of your indicators, you have the dotted yellow lines at the tops and the bottoms of the range that helps you to identify those bounce trades. Okay, so if you have those dotted yellow lines, that help you out a little bit better. But you can see here, okay, this is the Asian range. All right, this move right here is the inducement out of the Asian range. Okay, big shift out. Okay, then it pulls back, okay, to the 50 EMA right here. Okay, traps the 50 EMA, comes back to the 50% range as well. All right, but it closes above and below. You can see the Asian range, the bottom of the range is right here. Okay, it moves to the 50% but doesn't get there. It actually hits the bottom range instead, okay, and closes below. All right, so pull back to the 50 EMA in the bottom range. So the bottom range is right here. You can see that line is right there, right? It traps above and below that bottom range line. Okay, now the RSI you can see is at the 1.5 point, a little bit above it. Okay, it just kind of bounces off the static 50 there. Okay, so within 1.5 points, bounces off the static 50. Now this candle, you can't take this candle because it's closed below the 13, but it hasn't crossed the signal line. So you actually have to wait until this big shift candle is shifting below the 13 EMA that crosses the signal line. That's when you can take the trade. Okay, also a very nice trade. You can see it came back and pulled back a little bit, but ultimately it went down and stayed down below the 13 EMA. Okay, so next we're going to look at the Asian bounce on the top range. Okay, so this is your Asian range, another big Asian range here, 57.9. Right here is your inducement. Okay, there's the top of the range, inducement out of the Asian range box. Okay, then a pullback. Right, but the pullback to the 50 EMA doesn't happen until right here. This is where it touches. Right, and at that point you can see the candles. It stops right at the top of. Okay, the top of the range of the box. Okay, so this blue box here, the top of the range, you can see if I draw a line right across, it stops right at the top of the range. Okay, and that's also happens to be where the 50 EMA is. All right, so pull back to the 50 and the top of the range. All right, we'll look at our RSI. This is where it bounces off of the static 50 within 1.5 points. Okay, so bounce off the static 50 within 1.5 points, touches the water, and also bounces off of the Asian range from here. Okay, sorry, we're going to this candle. Sorry. So this candle is where it crosses the RSI signal line. Okay, this shift candle is rather large. All right, and you could make a case right there. I think if you move the line over, it's almost like 50-50. But right there, you get a pullback entry on this, so it's a little bit better. You get a discounted price, right, on this candle, and you can see this has clearly crossed the RSI signal line. Okay, so that was a pullback entry there that you could have taken, and again, another lovely trade there. Each of these is 25, so 25, 50, about 60, 70 pips on that trade. Okay, so there's your entry, and that was a good trade. All right, next. All right, so sometimes you can get a safety, all right? And what do I mean by safety? Well, I mean a second leg entry, right? Because sometimes you get an inducement, pulls back to the 50 EMA, and then it doesn't go down the first time. It comes back up, okay? So let's look at that. So here we have our inducement out of the Asian range, okay? Then we have a pullback, all right? Now this pullback to the 50 EMA comes down, closes below the 13, but then comes right back up, okay? So it comes right back up here, hits the 200, traps the 200, pull back to the second leg here, all right? And you can see it comes back up to the 50% range, all right? And then it comes back down, closes below the 13 EMA, all right? But we cannot take this trade right now. Why? Because on a second leg, you need to follow our TDI confirmation rules on a second leg. And what's that? We need to have the RSI crossing the signal line, but we also need to be below the market baseline. Okay, so this candle, even though it's a big shift candle and it has shifted below all the EMAs, we can't take that yet until the RSI has crossed below the market baseline. Okay, you can see it's trapped the static 50 once the first time, it's trapped the static 50 again a second time, and it actually even gives us a third leg here. So we have a head and shoulders here, okay, and a third leg on this setup, which also hits the water, hits the blue tracer, hits the 800 EMA, lots of confluences here, all right, and a nice evening star candle formation. Okay, so right here is where it crosses the market baseline and the signal line. Okay, and you see on that candle shift below is where that happens. Okay, so this right there would be your entry. Okay, and that would be a second leg. Okay, let me just sorry, I went a little bit too fast on that. I want to make sure you guys saw that. Okay, so that is your entry right there, all right? Head and shoulders, all right? Shift below the EMA, that was your entry, okay? RSI has crossed the signal line below the market baseline right here, okay? And then you can see that was roughly about a 45 pip trade down to the bottom there, okay? So again, inducement out of the Asian range, pullback to the 50 EMA, does not come down, okay, and gives you a second leg. All right, so if you had your stop loss above here, you got stopped out. All right, take your scratch, wait for the second leg entry. This candle shifts below the EMAs, but does not close below the market baseline. Okay, so you have to wait until it closes below the market baseline to take your trade. And we got a nice head and shoulders here. All right, guys. Okay, so that was the Asian bounce trade. That's it for today's lesson, guys. If you have any questions on this, as usual, just send them to me direct. You can email me or ask them in the chat. Hope that was helpful. And once again, if you need any help on this, just let me know. Okay, I'll see you guys in the next webinar, and that's it for today's lesson.